Okay, step 3 on the drum rack sampler tutorial. So you should have gotten all your sounds loaded. You can see I've got my samples loaded right here. Um, and in this step, we're going to talk about adding effects and mixing up your samples, editing them. Okay. And for this step, I want you to do at least these 5 different ways of editing your sounds. You don't have to do these on every sound. You can leave some sounds alone, and you can do multiple ones of these on the same sound if you want, but you have to show me at least one example of each of these types of edits in your sound library. So let's go ahead and start with this. So the first one is edit the start and end playback points of a sample. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to click on this vocal sample that I got, and it sounds like that. So to change the start and end playback points, just click on, well, first of all, let me show you this. If you click on this little arrow right here, that will expand it up here. It'll also give you some more controls down here, and we're going to need these controls later on. So on any of your samples that you're editing, make sure you click that little arrow up so you can see the big picture here. So to change your end playback point, just click and drag this way. Or if you wanted to change the beginning, or maybe just place something in the middle, right? Real easy on that one. That's just changing the starting and ending points, and you can do that on any sample. The next one, use a filter to adjust the frequency and resonance of a sound. I like to do this on the kick drum especially, so I'm going to demonstrate that on this one. Sounds like that. And I want to mess with that. So the filter is right here, this first kind of black window right there. And so I'm going to go ahead and just turn the filter on. So it's not by default on. You do actually have to click that box, and then that will turn the filter on. And then from here, you've got these familiar knobs, hopefully, frequency and resonance. If I turn the frequency down, I'm going to be cutting out the highs and letting the lows pass. This is a low pass filter. And then resonance, remember, gives us that peak kind of right at the resonance. And you can also just control this right on the screen if you just click on the yellow dot. So you can kind of hear what that's doing with my kick drum. I kind of like that. It gives it that nice snap, but takes out some of those high frequencies. You can change to different kinds of filters with this little shape button right here. So if you wanted to do a high pass filter, so cut out the lows and leave the highs, you could do that also. I'm going to put this back to low pass, and you can see there's some other filter options there. You're welcome to explore. And in addition to that, so there's one use of the filter, and there are some other uses of it. Feel free to experiment around if you want, but I'm just going to cover that one for now. For the next thing, it is use an LFO to control volume, pitch, pan, or filter. So just controlling one of those things. And this is where this instrument gets a little bit different than the synthesizer, because we've got a lot of these same things, like a filter and LFOs and envelopes, but just how you use them is a little bit different. It's really geared towards these kind of shorter one-shot samples. So to use the LFO, we'll just turn it on again. Make sure that yellow square next to the word LFO is on, lit up. And to change the speed of your LFO, is this blue square down here is the hertz. So you can click on that and drag. You can see that speeds up or slows down my LFO. And then what you want it to control is right here. You can kind of view this as your matrix, but you only have 4 options. You can either have the LFO control volume, pitch, panning, or filter. Let me show each of those. So volume, first of all, I'm going to just turn that up to 100%. And you can kind of hear that's making the sound like volume goes up and down with that. Pitch, that'll change the pitch up and down. That's kind of cool. Kind of get lasery sounds with that. Panning, we'll take it back and forth between your left and right ears. That can be really cool on a cymbal. Cool. And then the last one is filter. Now this will only be on if you have your filter turned on. So if your filter's off, there won't be any option to change that number there. But if this is on, then you can use your filter or your LFO to control your filter. And you won't see it move back and forth like you did on the synthesizer, but it's the same thing as if I were to grab this and move it back like this in sync with that LFO. Okay, so that's how you use the LFO. Pretty easy. Almost the last thing, use a pitch envelope to, and it says in parentheses here, make sure to change the amount to a positive or negative number. That's more of a reminder for me because I forget this all the time. But I've seen a lot of students forget this also. So let's go back to our, let's do this on a tom. How about? So pitch envelope. Again, just make sure that the square is lit up there. And then this envelope, remember an envelope is going to be something that only happens once. So when I very first push the note, it's going to do this thing one time, right? And this is going to affect pitch. So the pitch is going to go up and then come back down to resting value. And all that's affected by the amount that you have here, right? So if it's set to 0, this won't actually do anything because it's not, the amount is 0, right? If I go to positive, you can see the pitch goes up and then comes back down. And you can mess with attack, decay, sustain, and release of this right now. Or, again, you can just control it right here on the screen. And a lot of these sounds are so short, you may not get to see the whole envelope. Like the envelope might be longer than your sound even plays, in which case you won't hear it. But here that pitch is going up and back down now. If I make the amount negative, it's going to do the opposite. It's going to go down and back up. Yeah. Right, so this is going up, but it's turning this to a negative amount. So that's why the pitch is going down first and then coming back up. So that can be a fun thing to mess with. There are other controls here, and again, I'm not going to get into all of it, but feel free to mess around with that. You do have to pitch envelope one of your sounds. Finally, last thing here is transpose. So transpose is real easy. I'll go with, go back to our crash. So our crash sounds like that. If I transpose it, that's this knob right here. Down, it gets lower in pitch. Up goes higher in pitch. And a little bit goes a long way on this, so have fun, but be careful with that knob. Couple of the bonus things just to show you, there is a fade in and a fade out knob that you can turn in. You can see that will kind of make a fade in on the sound. So that kind of took off that hard edge at the beginning of our sound. And then fade out also, you can kind of fade out sounds earlier if you want with that. And there's other knobs to mess around with for sure, but those are all that we're going to cover in this tutorial, and the only ones that are required are those 5. You have to do those on at least one sound. So that's it for this.